All right. Hey, welcome back. If you're tuning into this first module, we have to assume that you want to be a wedding photographer, so let's look at it.
So in Module 1, this is the foundations of wedding photography, and then specifically in Lesson 1, this is all about
The good, the bad, and the ugly. To really see if this is what you want to do. Hey guys, I'm Chris, and this is Ray.
We are Dallas-Fort Worth wedding photographers with over 8 years of experience in the industry, and we are passionate about educating and equipping other photographers in their craft and business.
Yeah, so one of the ways we are doing this is this series here on YouTube, where we are going to teach you the foundational pillars that you need to make it as a wedding photographer.
All right, so let's get into it. Okay, so first up, the good, because there's a lot of good that comes with being a wedding photographer. So things like you have schedule flexibility, you can get paid to travel for destination weddings, and you're in control of your life.
Absolutely.
So within that, so being a wedding photographer allows for like a super flexible weekday schedule, and we get to decide our own hours for things like editing and taking client calls and taking portrait sessions, things like that. Of course, we don't get to pick the hours of our wedding days necessarily. I mean, in a way, I guess you could cap your coverage at 8 or 10 hours, but I mean, So besides you can decide which jobs you're going to take and not take. So you're in control of your schedule that way.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's a big perk. I love the freedom that we have in our schedule to be able to just
We love it.
live our lives.
Absolutely.
You get to decide, in what I was just saying, you get to decide which weddings you take and which ones you don't. So if there are, when you're beginning, you're probably going to want to be taking anybody who will hire you, which is great. As you get more experienced and advanced.
Also depends on if you're full-time or part-time.
It does also depend on if you're full-time or part-time. If you have a Monday through Friday job, obviously it's going to be really hard to be accepting a Friday wedding.
Yeah.
But if, whenever you get to the point where you can be selective about the jobs you take, if there is an inquiry that comes in and it doesn't align with your business or your shooting style, or maybe they are wanting, you'll get really good at learning when a client that is inquiring is looking for something that you don't really offer, so you can turn down those jobs. And it's not just to be snobby and turn down a job, but really so that you can serve those clients well, and you can make recommendations for them and say, hey, I hear what you're saying, and it sounds like you're really looking for something that is not quite what I offer. So things like that. So you can also decide, if you, for instance, there's a lot of weddings that happen on New Year's Eve, and you can decide if you want to work New Year's Eve, maybe charge a premium for a holiday or not work. Things like that.
Absolutely.
And then, obviously, if you do destination weddings,
you get paid to travel, so you get to go
fun.
See lots of cool places, see lots of cool weddings, and photograph some beautiful things. Essentially, the best good is you get to be your own boss and really decide what you actually want to do.
You get to be with people on the happiest day of their lives.
Oh, it is fun to party with fun couples.
Yeah.
On a weekend basis.
Yeah.
Basically. So.
Don't get me wrong. There might be some couples that are not so fun, especially in the early stages of your career. But truly, I don't think I've had a single couple that I just didn't love and adore and have the greatest time celebrating them.
We always have the greatest time with them.
And it's just it is the happiest day of their lives. Everybody's so happy. It's not like being in a job where everybody's sad. No. Like a firefighter where I don't know. It's like the worst day of their lives if a firefighter's showing up. Yeah. Most likely. So this one will have another implication when we get to the bad, but there is a level of job security when you can sit down and look at your schedule, and you can see, I have this many weddings booked over the next 12 months, and you can see exactly when you have income coming in. So that's, to me, job security.
And also the fact that no matter what's happening in the world, people are getting married. Yes. And people want to see those photographs later on in their life.
What is it they say? There's always, people are always getting married, dying, and having babies?
Something like that. So there's a level of job security in the fact that, this is an industry that's not really going away. You don't have to worry about it fading out. It's just evolving as it goes through the years, but you can evolve with it. So there is that extra little level of job security with this business.
And then obviously, like we said
Boom.
earlier,
You get to be your own boss. It's the greatest thing ever. We've been doing it for over 8 years now, and we've had the funnest little life
Yeah.
thus far. We have so many opportunities that we get to do that other friends don't necessarily have the same opportunities.
Yeah.
So it has really been a blessing, and that's why we love this business. So now
The bad.
the bad.
There are some things. There are some things that are not always the greatest. So things like you have to give up your weekends often. It's a physically demanding job. I mean, I feel it. I feel it the day after a wedding.
Yeah.
And it's not really a job you're most likely going to retire doing at 65.
It's a difficult job
It'd be hard.
to retire with.
So primarily weddings usually happen on Saturdays. And so that means that quite a lot of the time you are giving up Saturdays, which is when a lot of big life events happen. So, I mean, for example, we have to frequently say no to birthday parties, especially things like that are smaller, that are life events but smaller. Like birthday parties are not scheduled 12 months in advance,
No.
like the weddings that we get hired to shoot are. It's a little easier. Like if somebody was getting married, it might be easier to schedule that and not schedule weddings for that, or even like knowing when you're going to take vacations. But last minute things or things that are on a shorter scheduling time frame,
Yeah.
you have to say no to those a lot if you're already booked for a wedding, which can really honestly just suck. I feel like I never get to see a lot of the people in my life because especially like at birthday parties and showers and things like that, because we're always photographing weddings.
Generally busy. Yep.
The job is pretty tough.
Job is tiring on wedding days for sure. I mean, you're going most of the day and your feet start hurting, your back start hurting, especially if you carry like 20 cameras like she does on occasion. But yeah, I mean, even when you're young, it's a pretty physically demanding job. So
Yeah.
just something you have to be aware of.
Oops, too far.
Too far, go back.
So this isn't a job that you are you're going to be doing for 20, 30, 40 years, like a desk job. There's typically an aging out threshold, and there's a couple of reasons for that. A, your body will get tired of it, you'll get tired of it, and you won't be able to maybe keep up with doing as many weddings a year. And then also, as you get older, the wedding people getting married tend to get younger. And so that age gap is just it causes, I mean, I would say, for instance, like say there's a couple that's getting married really young at 22. They're not probably going to hire a wedding photographer that's 50 years old to be following, because you're with them all day. And so just not anything to do with somebody that's 50 years old, but just as a 22-year-old, they're most likely going to be hiring a wedding photographer that they can relate to better. And also, not always, but it seems like the longer you're in this career, the more set in your ways and of the style that you're doing, maybe. And if these photography trends are changing and you're not going to get hired as frequently.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit that goes into
It's just a natural occurrence that happens as you age. Just the gap between you and the couples becomes a little bit more pronounced. That's all there is to it.
Yeah. Okay, so then the other thing is that with being a wedding photographer, your schedule is locked in like months in advance usually, and it can make some tough decisions when you're trying to decide, on things like family vacations, and you're just trying to plan your life, because you have to plan everything around these weddings that you have booked 8 to 15 months away, or I mean, it depends on the area you're in, I guess, but so that can be really tough, trying to just, your whole life kind of revolves around other people's lives in a way.
Yeah.
So
In a way.
Yeah.
I mean, like with that, it's just two sides of a coin. It's great. You get to create your own schedule. You can plan so many things. Also, there's been many times where we've had just the freedom, like if we notice that we have a gap, to take a spontaneous vacation. And so we've had that freedom, but like she said, it can also be on the bad side where, hey, like you're locked into the wedding. There's no getting out of it. And so you have to plan for things like that.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about some ugly things that can happen
Yeah.
being a wedding photographer.
So there's a lot at stake as a wedding photographer. Your holding people's memories in your hands.
Yeah.
And if you make a mistake, like you lose data, or
You miss a moment.
or you get mugged on the way home, or I don't know, there's all kinds of
Or-
crazy things. You lose a memory card.
Etc.
It can be super painful mentally on you and on your clients, and expensive. Because if, say that you only had your photos backed up to one hard drive, and that hard drive fails, and then you have to pay $2,000 or $3,000 to get that hard drive fixed, or maybe you can't even get it fixed, so then you have to refund your clients however much they paid, $5,000-$6,000, and that sucks.
So burnout.
So as a wedding photographer, a common thing that happens is burnout. So what burnout looks like is you're not excited to shoot the weddings anymore. You don't want to do the work. You get cynical. You don't reply to people as fast. You just it's just this feeling of, I don't want to be doing this anymore, which is difficult as a wedding photographer, because it's not like you can just put in your 2 weeks notice, because you often will have weddings scheduled 8, 10, 12, 14 months out that you still have to shoot.
Yeah.
Unless you have a ton of money saved and you can just refund them and do something else.
And then on the other end, that kind of sucks for the couples too. So
It does.
but
And
yeah,
burnout can be really difficult to recover from.
it's hard. I mean,
Not impossible.
you've been through your share.
Yeah, a couple of times.
Yeah.
So, okay, so there can be situations with clients or vendors or the client's parents or mother of the groom or bride or anybody, where things get sticky because of a difference in opinions, or you didn't execute something to their
Standard.
preferences or whatever, and that can get really ugly and tricky. And there's a lot of, I have personally not experienced this, but I've seen it in a lot of Facebook groups where people are being sued for the craziest things that are just crazy. And it's not even like the person suing that wedding photographer has grounds, but it's still just such a nightmare of a situation that you don't want to be dealing with.
Absolutely. And it goes into a little bit of like setting expectations for your clients, to know, you're like, hey, this is how it's going to be. So they're not, surprised by anything.
Yeah. Okay. So at the end of the day, being a wedding photographer, honestly, it's an amazing job with so many benefits.
We loved it.
And flexible lifestyle and all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But you just need to be prepared, as with any job, that there's going to be some tough times and things that you just need to be aware of that are possible and are likely. So
if you love photography and you want to get into this industry, I highly encourage you to do so.
Yeah.
It has been the greatest thing that we've done.
Yeah.
So let's go to module 2.
Okay, so up next, we're going to be talking about what you need before your first wedding.
Yes. Tune in.